So in this video, I wanted to take a quick look at a pen called the Engineer Series. It's available on Amazon, and I happened to stumble upon it. Basically, what it is a knockoff of the Rotring 600. I picked up this Rotring 600 pen years and years ago for back when they were selling for very little, and I've just held on to it. It's just been one of my favorites. It's the one of the original series, the knurled grip. Obviously, it's the Rollerball design. These things are really hard to get your hands on these days, and they're quite expensive, but there is a lot of demand for them. So I guess some companies have been coming up with knockoffs. Rotring no longer makes the 600 in the Rollerball design. So this is the Engineer Series. It's a clear knockoff of the Rotring. It just comes in a this sort of gift box. There's no branding or anything like that, no instructions, just this tin. And now let's take a look at the two pens side by side. And just for reference, this thing, I bought it off Amazon for $15. That's with Prime shipping. So obviously both use a hexagonal design. The aesthetics on the two are very similar, just with the knurling at the ends, the folded design to the clip is really similar. The Rotring has the red banding, the Engineer does not, but the area where the banding would go is definitely right there. And let's see, you can see the Rotring has a very subtle knurling, and this spins so you can have a color indicator on it. It's always a nice touch. There's no color indicator on the Engineer, and obviously the knurling is well done. It's just a coarser knurling. Onto the clip, the designs are almost exactly the same, but the clip on the Engineer has obviously been abbreviated, and it's like a cheaper stamp. You can see that, whereas the Rotring went ahead and did a that full curl, which is actually pretty nice looking. Past that, the bodies are pretty similar. See some the exteriors are pretty similar. You see the Rotring has a shorter end area, or whatever, the top area for posting the cap. The Rotring also has a rubber seal. The Engineer has the longer grip section or knurling section and no seal. Taking the clip off, you can see the designs again are quite similar. The Engineer adopted the Rollerball tip design from Rotring, but did not preserve the knurling. The knurling like this, it's actually really fine. It's really hard to do well, and it's definitely like expensive to do. And Rotring did a really nice job with theirs. Interestingly enough, the Rotrings, this is the 600 with the knurled grip. Later on, they moved over to the Newton design, which has a smooth grip section. So the Engineer is probably just a knockoff of the Newton or the later 600s, the non-knurled 600s, whereas maybe they just didn't go back farther enough to copy the original and like really high demand version, which has the knurling. Design-wise, the two are actually fairly similar. The Rotring's a little bit extended, interestingly enough, and I think that's about it. This one has a longer or stretched out end section, but shockingly similar. One thing I will say is that the Rotring has it's a little hard to see, but they have these little pop out areas where the hex corner is, and that is how the cap is held in there. And those tend to wear out over time, which is why a lot of times when you're buying a used Rotring 600 Rollerball, the cap will not hold on as well as it used to, with those areas wear out. With this Engineer, it has a nice firm click, but you have a wider band over there, whereas the Rotring, the two parts are adjacent. So not a huge deal, but just another subtle change. Opening up the Engineer, it turns right and it disconnects right where the Rotring is. disconnected. You can see it has a really coarse threading. This is the last time I'll wheel out the Rotring. The Rotring uses a little bit finer threading and the contrasting metal, because it's black. Painted, really well done. It's really good engineering on the Rotring. The engineer is actually not in any way bad. It's just missing some of the subtler touches of the Rotring. And then in here, the pen. It's only a $50 pen, so, and it's a no-name pen, so it comes with a, like I said, no-name Rollerball refill. But this is easy enough. It's a standard Rollerball size. So if you want to put something else in there, you can. The spring is in the bottom, just like in the Rotring. Spring is in the top, rather, just like in the Rotring. When it goes back together, you could feel that the threading is a little squeaky and a little gritty. Not quite as up to professional standards of the Rotring, but again, not in any way terrible. And now we have the and it's I guess it's the Engineer Series pen Rollerball. Not a very good cartridge, but it's easy enough to flip that out. So if you want to get a G2 refill or a standard Rollerball refill, you can put it in there. And I bet I have one lying around. I do. Here's just a standard G2 cartridge. And just now, I'll note that the pen didn't have any weird smell to it, or any weird greasiness, or anything that is an effect of cheap manufacturing. So that is definitely, I was surprised to see that the pen ships in a really nice condition, and it doesn't have any evidence of like really cheap or poor manufacturing. It seems like maybe it's not, it's a knockoff and it's has some shortcomings, but it's I've seen stuff way worse being shipped. So that was definitely nice. And now we have the G2 cartridge in there, and we could write and that was sorry, a little hard to see, but that was this section right there. It writes quite nicely. Just get another shot. So with the G2 cartridge in it, it writes really nicely. So, and that's obviously an easy flip. So last thing I'll just note is that I forgot to mention this. The Rotring, you cannot spin the cap. The cap is held in place because the hexagonal design extends right there. Here, this one you could spin the cap. So not a huge deal, but just another subtle difference since we are geeking out about these pens. So yeah, if you get that Engineer pen and you go ahead and put a better cartridge in it, you're gonna have a really close knockoff of the Rotring 600. I don't know how you feel about knockoffs, if you think it's completely wrong or you're fine with it, but that's up to you. But yeah, for $16, this thing's fairly impressive for an EDC pen. It's not quite the original Rotring, and it's not perfect and it needs a new cartridge, but there you have it. That's the Engineer Series Rollerball. Thanks for watching.